Hello everyone and welcome to another ARK Mobile video. Today's video is tackling the question, is ARK Mobile pay to win? And this will also be a general response to a petition that has been circulating within the community. For any questions regarding specifics of PvP, just remember that I am an absolute PvE bob, and I can barely hit a player with a frying pan. I raided once and almost lost with thatch base. Take any PvP advice I have with a grain of salt, but heck, that's why I'm making this mostly about pay to win today. Before we get into the video though, the original petition is called Wildcard Needs to Get the ARK Mobile Developers to Fix Their Game. It also has 3 responses by Zeeple Productions, Mr. Squash93, and Daniel Cracker, of which I'll have all of them linked down below in the description for you guys. If you have not already watched them, I highly recommend them for more context. Outside of pay to win, the petition has, in summary, 3 major grievances. The ARK Mobile developers neglect the PvP community. There are game-breaking bugs that easily enable players to dupe, mesh, and more that is ruining the gameplay for other players, and there is blatant favoritism among the game developers. Now, I'm going to combine the first 2 points since their problems more or less do delve from the same source. There is a general problem with ARK Mobile of game balance. When almost every cave tribute, pursuit, and extravagant gifts drop Ascendant or Mastercraft gear blueprints, everything else in the game has to be scaled upward to still present a challenge to the player. For instance, look at how the crazy dungeons have to be for a player to even run it mid to late game. That imbalance combined with paid items that boost stats is escalated in PvP when the main enemies of the game are other players who also have the option to purchase stat boosting items. As for game breaking bugs, there is obviously an issue with the current system of reporting bugs. There needs to be an open door policy with developers regarding exploits. There needs to be a better and more accessible channel to report it. Just like developing games, the more clicks it takes to get a user to open up the game, the less likely they're going to. So the same goes for submitting these kind of bug reports. And before someone writes a comment that there's already official ARK Mobile forums, this current system is not effective enough to deliver a great app experience for ARK Mobile. One solution would be to open up a PvP test flight server again, the same kind of the server that the beta players were playing on prior to the game's initial release, to work on rebalance and stuff. Give the players a special Discord role to submit bug reports with higher priority to the developers, and many players in the community are dedicated to join a private test server, especially when there are rewards similar to the beta bob hat. In addition, if the developers created a rudimentary Kanban board or the like to update the community on what bugs they are currently fixing, it'd be greatly beneficial for the community for communication. Heck, they could even reintroduce developer roadmaps, but includes fixing certain bugs or exploits on the list. Okay, the next question is on favoritism among the developers in the petition. I'm not denying there is a potential for it, however, favoritism is extremely subjective. So let's just jump into the monetization part of ARK Mobile, because honestly, that's why I'm here. Earlier this week, we had a poll on the channel asking for the players' personal opinions on whether or not ARK Mobile was pay to win. While the sample size was only 200 players, it should be at least a little bit indicative of how the community feels regarding the current state of the game. Even if the game is not pay to win in any way, there is an issue with how the players perceive it and are shown paid items in game. 78% of the votes were, yes, the game is pay to win, and 22% of the votes were, no, the game is not pay to win. Again, in the poll, I asked players for their personal opinions. Many players' opinion of pay to win is a little bit crazy. Like, some people do believe that spending any money in the game at all is pay to win, even for cosmetics, or even quite the opposite. But let's go ahead and establish a concrete definition of pay to win. The best definition I could find was on the Wikipedia page, free to play, which conveniently is the same kind of game ARK Mobile is. The definition is, pay to win is when a player can gain any gameplay advantage over his non-paying peers. Now, ARK Mobile is a free-to-play game on iOS and Android. This means that in order for the developers to make a living, they need to break even and fund their next game project. They need to implement purchasable items, recurring subscriptions, or ads, or all 3. We do not have any knowledge of whether or not Rutrine Studios is working on any additional game projects or external contract work for revenue, so we have to assume they're running their game studio solely off of income derived from in-game purchases and ads. God, I can't speak today. Thank goodness a few months back, the website Tapjoy did an interview with one of the community managers and the Monetization IAP. IAP is in-app purchases, by the way. It's kind of the whole, in tech lingo for that. Perfect for the video, I was way too lazy to pull up comparisons from Cinema Studios, so this saved on a lot of research time. The link for the article will be down below in the description for those who are interested. For a basic breakdown of revenue to understand how Rutrine Studios makes a profit, approximately 30% of the income comes in through ad placement, and 70% through IAP, again, in-app purchases. So all these comments I've seen over the years of players just saying to remove all paid items in their entirety. It's not so simple. Now, there isn't any further breakdown on their website, but the 70% is a culmination of the Primal Pass, Ancient Armor purchases, God Console, Ascended Creature Unlock, and Archetypes. I'm holding the last three separate from the bulk of Amber purchases because those cannot be purchased with Ancient Amber currency whatsoever. So that means you do have to actually pay cash for those. You can't just get free Amber and then spend it that way. When creating the tier list in which the items in ARK Mobile are pay to win, let's go back to the article where Jordan was quoted as saying, "Paying for convenience is sort of our motto for the games we sell in the games we sell in game." I know how to read, guys. For the items we sell in game. There is a very tight line between paying for convenience and a gameplay advantage over another player, but let's go ahead and decide for that and get started. So I went ahead and I made a handy dandy chart using the definition established earlier to determine which items are pay to win. Pay to win is worse in PvP, considering again, like, you're facing against other players, so PvP players couldn't really give a flying fiamme over whether or not another player has a paid item or not. Because our definition is PvP oriented, items for single player will not be included on the list. Honestly, I gotta say some time, there's a lot of items on this list. While yes, God Console and Ascended Creature Unlock are pretty expensive, at least for the average player, they do not affect or break the game balance of other players. In addition, I'll be using 4 tiers in the chart, S, A, B, and C. You know those like cringy meme like tier charts? Basically that. The S tier is very pay to win. This tier is almost exclusively for items that provide a large in-game benefit or allow you to tame a dino you wouldn't otherwise be able to tame. The next tier is A tier. This one is moderately pay to win. These items give a decent buff to stats that can affect PvP, for example. Following that is B tier. This is the minimum tier to have any aspect of advantage in gameplay, but is limited to majority of time conveniences. For instance, a majority of the flower seeds will be good here. And last but definitely not least is C tier. I'm just tossing all cosmetics in here because honestly, I downloaded like 200 of these on my computer and way too much space. But I wanted to organize all cosmetics and any sort of not only page structure. Well yeah, it's kind of page structure. Not a crafting station, but like the stone steps. Basically just that. Okay, so here's the tier list. S tier, basically anything that's a kind of anything that extremely breaks the game balance. So Iron Skillet, Eerie Turrets, the Crowbar that can get you really good amounts of Amber, the Gold Collar for all of its stat increases, literally all the endgame stuff that you can get pretty easily by purchasing Element, Tech Blueprint Bundle, and Tech Saddle Bundle, and the Gold Crown because that literally helps you get Griffins easier. The next section, A tier. Basically, Chef Station Tannery, they make it incredibly easy to tame and start riding new dinos. In addition, the Intense Focus is a 3 times XP boost, which, while yes, the other buffs are thrown under B tier, the Intense Focus is 3 times. That's a lot. So that's basically why I tossed it up there, because 3 times, especially in junction with Primal Pass, in junction with Explorer Notes, that can add up to a very, very quick leveling up experience that honestly you wouldn't be able to get any other way. I mean, maximum of like 4 times without paying anything. Actually, I think maybe 5 times with the the Broth Enlightenment. But either way, that's still pretty crazy. So Extravagant Gift, that is actually a way to get Ascendant fabricated sniper rifles and a lot of Mastercraft like riot gear and stuff. So that's why the Extravagant Gift is thrown under there. While yes, you have a random chance of getting it, the fact that I know of players who have honestly bought many of those trying to get OP sniper rifles, a little bit crazy. That is kind of game breaking for the balance. Mammoth Side Saddle, I've heard a lot of you guys complain about this. Up there for good reason. You literally cannot get that saddle without like purchasing it with cold hard cash. Well, I mean, online cold hard cash. And then the collars outside of the gold collar. I mean, outside of the torpor and the weight related ones, they all just toss up here because they mostly give stat increases to stats that you would normally use for dinos that are fighting in PvP, like a speed increase, a attack increase, DPS, and the kind of stuff. Next one is Dungeon Key. It literally makes it so you can run the the dungeons faster. I mean, you could toss it under just paying for convenience, but the sheer ease of it does make it a little different. Like if you're trying to have 2 players compete for the same thing, one has an obvious advantage. And then the next one, snake plant seeds. I think that's what they're called. Honestly, I didn't write down the names, I just have the images here. So the snake plant seeds, they're the only way that you can get the unicorns. And you might be saying, like, players don't necessarily need to get unicorns. If you want to get the Eerie Candy blueprint, you need to get the unicorn poop. If you want the unicorn poop, you gotta get the unicorn. That or just like trap in your basement, but you know what? You do you. Anyways, the paying for convenience tier, literally any item that provides a slight buff to the game that, yes, the some of the other like the factory, lumber mill, all those things, they do give you items. In comparison to like the A tier ones, it's not as bad. At least like another player who's competing has a slight chance of at least gathering the same amount of wood in the time that it takes for a person to make an app purchase, especially on like the boosted server weekends and stuff. But like overall, those are still a slight increased in gameplay advantage, but it's nowhere near as bad as the other two tiers. And lo and behold, the cosmetics. You know how long it took for me to get all these images? Way too long. Legit, I spent like 2 hours making this chart, so I hope you guys are proud. Not even like deciding where to put things, just getting them in GIMP in general. My computer's lagging so much from this. Okay, so now that all the chart stuff was fun and all, but what about the original question? Is ARK really pay to win? Well, after looking at the chart, we can see that a majority of the items do not give a significant advantage over other players. While some of them are convenience items, at least a good chunk of them do not affect like major PvP elements. There are a few problematic areas which hopefully someday they'll be rebalanced for PvP, such as the frying pan, but overall I do believe that ARK Mobile is still a great game with just a few hiccups. Before I end off the video though, I do want to bring up several great community suggestions to keep the game, not to keep the game, to help the game for the reasons addressed earlier, either through community management or just general rebalancing. So first things first, one thing I've heard actually quite a few people talk about is a cheaper Primal Pass. Now I've heard different opinions, but at least for me, I wrote down that it'd be a great idea to have a $199 tier, that way it's just no ads. That way players who are inconvenienced by accidentally clicking on the ads in the top right corner, if they're playing PvP for instance, or even just PvE or single player. I mean, you're facing like against like a Thyla or something, not Thyla. Okay, if you're facing against a Theory, that was the correct thing I was thinking of. You don't want to actually tap on an ad and then die and stuff, so just the basic idea of having a cheaper end Primal Pass that has no other benefits, just no ads, I feel like a few people will actually be able to enjoy, and it would give an option to players who can't afford the full Primal Pass. In addition, the Primal Pass servers themselves do need a general rebalance. That is the next point. They need rebalanced for current purchasable items on Primal Pass servers to provide a more traditional, non-spender playstyle. That was literally the point of them in the first place, was to not have those like crafting stations, and I feel like with all the updates in the past year and a half, like they've just been throwing like item after paid item over and over, and essentially while the cosmetics are great in those servers, the rest of it isn't. So I feel like just a few of them should not be included, but again, that has been a thing I've heard a lot of people talk about, especially listening to a few people in the PvP community. One of my ideas earlier was the PvP test flight server, which would be a new server designed to have volunteer PvP players test potential rebalances in the games, test, I don't know why I can't say anything today, test bug fixes and submit bug reports. Basically, just have the beta servers again. Like it is a good way to establish developer consumer contact, and like there's enough people in the community that would be willing to offer free support for this, where they would honestly want to play the game to help it improve. And here's one of my ideas I actually talked about on the podcast with Master Arrow earlier today: limited edition cosmetics. With a similar rotation to dungeons, introduce a new cosmetic on a weekly rotating schedule to increase in-app purchases without jeopardizing players' opinions on pay to win. New skins could even be introduced to promote new and upcoming DLC on console, such as Genesis. And the last one is developer roadmap / Kanban board for bugs. Basically, just reintroduce a developer roadmap to help reestablish communication with the fans, but also specialize in communicating that you're going to be fixing certain exploits, bugs, etc. Because honestly, people just want to communicate. Like, just the sheer fact of having an extra tweet per week or just something like that, extra Reddit posts explaining what you're currently working on, like, that stuff always helps. It's always better to talk a little bit more than not at all. Anyways, I think that wraps up today's video. Hope everyone has a great night, and we'll see you all next time. Wait, I forgot. Don't forget to go ahead and smash the like button down below and subscribe for more mobile content. We'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.